subscribe button. And if you know a friend or a family member or even a crazy ex-girlfriend who enjoys combat sports, especially boxing, please tell them about this podcast. I am sure they'd love it. So listen, we don't have that many fights to talk about in this next week coming up in boxing, but I believe also in MMA as well. So this is just kind of going to be a recap of the fights that we saw last weekend, and we will also shoot you some extra content, probably a new Unknown to Casuals that I've been working on. We put those one out about once a month, kind of like a special. I'm very proud of those myself, put a lot of work into them. That's kind of what I'd like to really push to the forefront because it's something that I feel that other people don't do a lot, and I can offer that as a lifelong fan of this sport. That's something I can offer. I feel like it's unique. If you haven't seen those, we touch on 3 fighters at a time, and they can't be famous. Sometimes, most times, maybe not champions. And if you're especially a casual boxing fan, you have not heard of them, and you should know about them. And even if you're, kind of a boxing fan, you're more than a casual, you watch every weekend. These again are going to be fighters that are not really in main events that often, and there's just kind of something that I do there that I feel like I do well and is unique. But this will be a recap episode because these last few years in boxing, you guys, have been really good. They've been really, really, really good. Lots of undisputed fights, but even some of like this past, Saturday and Friday, really, too. We got two days of fights in a row. They don't have like much to offer face value wise. People go, oh, Shakur Stevenson, Conceicao, either they never heard of him, and they don't care, or if you knew Shakur Stevenson, you didn't know Conceicao is a really good boxer as well, and so you just thought, I'll just run him over. Listen, that turned out to be true, but there is like fights like this Joyce, versus Joseph Parker fight was just fantastic. It blew away expectations. I'm a diehard boxing fan, so I'm watching all these anyway, but that doesn't mean that I don't look at some of these fights when they're announced or when they're going to be happening and say, for God's sakes, I'll check this out just to see if it's worthwhile, but doesn't sound like much. This fight was great, you guys, okay? So we're going to talk about that. The Floyd Mayweather expedition, who the fuck cares? It's not pro, it's an exhibition. It's in Japan against some guy you never heard of before in Asakura, and Floyd's like 50. So you're like, who cares about that? That turned out to have a little bit of interest to it. Little bit of something worth talking about, so we'll touch on that as well. Amanda Serrano returned, which was completely dominant as expected, but, cool to have her in the ring. And there's a lot of bigger picture stuff to get from all this. So the first thing, let's run through the quick ones real quick if we can. Robson Conceicao versus Shakur Stevenson took place. This was actually, I believe, the Friday fight on ESPN Plus. It was a dominant performance from Shakur Stevenson, but the thing that, if you didn't know who Robson Conceicao is, listen, I do. I respect Conceicao a lot, and so I thought, though, that this fight would actually be competitive. It's not that I didn't think Shakur definitely wins it, but I did call it going the distance as it did. And I'm proud of that pick. That was kind of a little interesting thing that a lot of people, if they didn't know who Conceicao is, he's gonna usually box in his back foot. Actually, he didn't even do that in this fight. It's almost like a kind of a miracle he got put out because he got kind of desperate towards the end, losing all these rounds. I didn't give him a round in the fight. There was a drop as well in the fight, so that's a 10-8. Just a dominant performance from Shakur Stevenson, who did miss weight and lose his belts on the scale before this fucking fight even happened. So that wasn't a great look, man. It's just not. But Shakur Stevenson, it doesn't change the fact. I don't like that, but it doesn't change the fact that, like I've been shouting from the rooftops for some years now, honestly, is that Shakur Stevenson's a guy I mentioned that can move up and fuck up the 135-pound division. A lot of people talk about this because they know he's a good fighter, and they simply say, oh, we want to see these fights. I think you can beat a lot of those guys, and that opinion remains. And though it's not a great look to lose your belts to the scale in the way that he did, I also just still feel like, obviously, feel the same. Dominant performance. He's going to move up to 135 now. Forgive me, turn this fucking phone. He's going to move up to 135 now. And those are where all the fights, the great fights are. And listen, you guys, we want to see him end game here. I want to see him face Vasily Lomachenko. That's the end game. I think he can beat Devin Haney, but Devin Haney is a very good boxer. And in my opinion, Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson, I like Stevenson better than Haney, but they actually have kind of a, not in every way, obviously, but they have a somewhat similar style in that they're both incredibly defensively sound, very good fighters that hardly ever give away a round, but also don't do the flashiest, craziest stuff. Don't really, their thing isn't really like angle cutting. It's all like stuff that to the naked eye looks like, wow. They make fights look boring sometimes every now and again, both those guys, because they're great at distance management. That's what they're great at. And defense, right, all that stuff. But it's not even like the craziest inside head movement or Floyd stuff. It's not angles. It's just like stuff that the naked eye can't pick up on a lot unless you know what you're looking at there. And that's quite fascinating. They're just very like safe fighters, very aware at all times of where they are distance-wise from their opponent, where they are in the ring. They're just, it's the small little stuff that they both do so well. But I think Shakur will beat Devin Haney if they fought. Like I said, the end game is him and Loma. I think he has a very good chance at beating Tank Davis, right? I think that he definitely, out of all these guys, beats Ryan Garcia up. And so it's just incredible to fascinate about that. We're going to see it eventually. But I'm here to tell you guys that those are the fights everybody talks about, even if his next fight's at 135. I hope you guys know the way boxing works. We're not going to see any of those fights for at least a year and a half, 2 years, maybe 3 years, and sometimes, fuck, man, maybe more, but we don't like to think that way, okay? But I'm here to tell you guys that the future's promising regardless, because even guys like Luke Campbell, Jorge Linares, the Sniper Pedraza, these people, that are kind of that second down tier are very good as well. And this is up a weight class, and they'll produce very good fights that'll even give us better judgment on how they'll face these more elite competition than we even have now. But that was just dominance from Shakur Stevenson all the way through anyway. And then we have Amanda Serrano, right, took on Mafund or Mafund. Something. I've never heard of the girl, okay? And I'm a fucking boxing fan who's going to tell you about, possibly later this weekend, about some great female fighters in the new Unknown to Casuals episode. But this was always going to be dominant, right? And it was. But, just because I didn't know, I don't want to downplay her opponent. If you guys, let me know, hey, her record's actually really, because I don't know about her opponent here. But the fight was, kind of a bit of a massacre. I mean, it's a masterclass from Amanda Serrano, who's just a fantastic fighter, man, and is really just one of the small, you can count on one hand with a fucking finger chopped off the elite girls in boxing, and she is one of them. 7 weight class world champion. Fight of the year with Katie Taylor. They are just leaps and bounds above their other opponents, and we touched on this before. As somebody who's really kind of trying to champion women's boxing here and back it up, it's just going to be the way it is. We need more time and to get more kind of contenders, and right now we have the Clarissa Shields of the world and the Amanda Serranos, the Katie Taylors. Shout out to Savannah Marshall. We have these fighters that are just gonna beat every other female fighter because it's newer. But we talked about that before. Anyway, I just wanted to remind you guys of that. But Amanda did look good, very good, but it was to be expected. So hopefully, we're gonna see Katie Taylor fight some girl, Carballo. It's not that she's a bad boxer and stuff, but Katie Taylor's just gonna wipe the floor with that girl as well. It's gonna be similar to kind of like this, I would imagine. And hopefully we can build back to just having Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor rematch. And then just have them fight every fucking, twice a year until they retire. Because that is that's the pinnacle of women's boxing, for sure. And yeah, Amanda Serrano showed that again here. And the Floyd Mayweather, right, versus Asakura fight, very weird. It's in Japan. They give, like, to give Floyd his flowers is like a metaphor of, like, look at how great Floyd was. Don't hate on him anymore. His pro career's done. Let's give him, and that's cool. But these fucking it's in Japan here, and they send some guy out in like a samurai outfit and bringing a bouquet of flowers, and then he throws it at his feet. It seemed WWE-ish. I think some of that stuff leads to the question of the ghost punch or whatever, you know. Was this a real knockout? Was this a real fight? Yeah, I don't, you know, this one this one looked a little different. People said this though about the Tension, I believe his name was like Tenshin Nasukawa, was the other guy that Floyd fought in an exhibition last year, maybe 2 years ago, maybe. In an exhibition, and just destroyed this kid, knocked him down a bunch of times, and Floyd don't even hit hard, has brittle wrists. He's just fucking this kid up, beating him from pillar to post. That was an absolute beating, and people said, oh, it's fake, it's set up. That's fucking bullshit, and I knew that. This one seemed a little different, but again, I'll tell you why I don't believe it, is because Floyd actually was getting hit in this first round. This turned out to be a little something fun. Because though it's meaningless and it's an exhibition, Floyd's 50 and all this stuff, it turned out to be a little fun because Floyd was legit getting hit a little bit in that first round, getting his head snapped back. Then they come out again, and Floyd, yeah, like, you know, this Asakura kid had some little moments in there. It looked as if, to me, he was really truly trying to make the most of it, and he was having a little bit of success against an older Floyd Mayweather in a fight that doesn't show on his pro record, win or lose. So I think that, you know, one, he's older. Two, he's in decent shape. I believe, you know, Floyd's a guy who don't even drink. Say he's always going to be in decent shape, but he's not been in like a hardcore training camp because his pro career's been over. All these exhibitions, he doesn't do, you know, crazy training camps to any kind of extent for these kind of fights. So I think it's not even, you know, and he undervalues it a little himself. It's like a quick money grab. I mean, that's on this, it just is what it is. We don't need to talk about that because everybody knows that. But so that's how he kind of came out, and he got hit a little bit. And then he did set up like kind of a, you know, a good a good shot, but it looked a little fun. But I don't buy it. I don't buy it because I don't think Floyd would get hit like that in the first round. Just allow that, like, ooh, it's a good builder, because you can slow-mo those shots, and there's nothing, you know, weird about that. And I think that he looked to set this kid up, who was hitting him a little, and was like, I'm gonna get this fucking kid out of here. And you know what else? I hate this, man. Everybody in the boxing community is gonna fucking hate me. But I'm just God bless me, I'm just an honest guy. I actually kind of enjoy the thought of, like, the retired, you know, aged Floyd Mayweather just beating up smaller guys in Japan that no one's heard. And, like, the slick boxer, right, who since the Pretty Boy Floyd days long ago, you know, doesn't have knockouts, even with all these elite wins and stuff, doesn't have a lot of stoppages on his record, you know, towards the tail end of his career, and just a completely the best slick fighter ever. I kind of like the idea of just that guy, you know, going in and fighting smaller Japanese men and actually, like, viciously knocking them out like he's a heavyweight or something. I kind of find that enjoyable. But yeah, so this is the one to talk about. This is it. It's the Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker. This fight took me by surprise. I was always going to watch it because I have an unhealthy obsession with boxing, to be candid with you, so that's why I would have watched it. All expectations said that not only is this fight, you know, not great, it's also not meaningful for the division at all, really. And also, Joseph Parker wins this fight because he's a much better boxer against a complete brute with zero skills, who looks like he's just tough as shit and taken straight off the street into a ring. Almost everything was wrong. Not only, and we're going to talk about this after, not only was this fight definitely important for the heavyweight division. Absolutely, I was wrong. This fight was so important for the heavyweight division in ways that I did not expect at all, or think would be possible after watching it. That, and also Joyce knocks out Joseph Parker in the 11th fucking round. And, you know, I saw a feed of this before I rewatched the fight. I saw a feed of this fucking thing of him knocking him out. And I thought, God damn, that's cool. He did it again because he's just a brute. And in my head, without hearing anything, I just saw the knockout and I thought, I bet you he was losing so handedly. And then he's just a brute. He does it again. I watched the fight, you know, I watched the fight then after the full fight, and wow, you know, this fight was weird, man. The first thing I want to say here, about Joyce is that I did not know is Ismael Salas, he's a Cuban national trainer, right? And you know the Cuban style of boxing. He trains slick fighters. That's his fighting style. His training style is slick, defensive, right? Which is, I mean, it is literally the furthest thing. If you had to pick any aspects of boxing, slick and defensive is exactly what Joyce is not. To see this guy in his corner was really kind of cool, though, because why would you be working with Joyce? I don't know, but he looked all right in this fight. Now, did he change he still wasn't slick by any means, but for Joyce standards, he looked better because while he's throwing the slower, he don't have fast hands. He's throwing slower punches, but they're winging, and my God, he can crack. But while he's throwing these punches, he was incorporating little things that he wasn't before, that he didn't do in like the Daniel Dubois fight when he knocked him out. He just ate shots, come forward. He's still a bit of that, but I did see some changes. So not only with his feet was he much faster. He used to just kind of lumber forward and saunter around the ring after people. His feet looked faster in this. The hand speed is just not there, but his feet looked faster. He had a little bit of a bounce in his step, which I really appreciated. And when he was still throwing those winging shots, you know, not a lot of jabs to be had here. He'd throw in some little, like, head dips with it, right? And whoop, you know, and move his head off, instead of just looping them around. He'd get his head off the center line a little bit with his shots. So he would sometimes be able to really crack Joseph Parker when he'd have him kind of miss, even if it was by chance while he was throwing, and crack him. And this guy's just a dude. Joseph Parker. I mean, so after this fight, I watched it. He was just winning. He was handedly winning. He was handedly winning the fight, and it could have went to the scorecards, and you would have said, this got to go to Joyce anyway, which I didn't expect, against a better boxer. And then he knocked him out on top of it, and even though that happened, I'm still going to tell you, it is true, as far as technique and ring IQ and being defensively sound and things like that. You know, Joseph Parker, still, after this incredible loss to Joyce, is a better boxer. He has better boxing skills. He does. But this fucking guy, Joyce, is really rare. He really is, man. He's very rare. You know what people talk about, like, with Deontay Wilder? And there's going to be a segment there to that. Okay, there's a segue. Yeah, we're going to get into that. But you know how, like, with Wilder, he's so powerful and everybody wants to see, you know, oh my goodness, what a rare guy who knocks everyone out, but he doesn't have a lot of boxing ability. That's a little bit of Joyce, but also Joyce, like, will just walk you down and eat, like, not just jab, he'll eat vicious shots. This guy has got a goddamn beard on him, you guys. I mean, for fuck's sake, he just gets lit up with the worst shots, overhands, clean hooks on the chin, uppercut, everything. Through his fights, This fucking guy is like got an all-time chin on him, okay? And then also he is an unrelenting force of nature. This guy, his work rate is fucking incredible. So he don't just take shots, and I don't mean he could take the shot, not get knocked down, or even not get wobbled, but and then take a minute, and then okay, he's back. No, he'll eat the shots at the worst time, like mid him throwing a punch, he'll eat a fucking shot. That it's just the timing of it should get people out of there, even if they got a really good chin on him. And this fucking guy, it's just, it doesn't matter, man. He doesn't go down. You can time him perfectly. You can hit him with your best shot. He just doesn't seem to go down. And he continuously has this epic work rate, especially for the heavyweight division. The punch stat numbers are fucking crazy for this guy. He never stops throwing his hands. Not a lot of jabs to be had. There's a lot of hooks and overhands just winging. And man, you don't want one to land on you. And if you got something good to offer back, I'm sorry to tell you, this is the only fucking guy. It seems like it doesn't matter. He's like a force in nature that is a brick wall, and you can't break him, you know? And so you can fuck him up and outbox him, and he won't just like not go down, but you have always got to be careful. Not only doesn't he get hurt, he doesn't get, you know, deterred. He doesn't even take a step backwards for a moment. You know, he doesn't lose his stamina and his work rate over time. He was winning the fuck out of this fight, surprisingly, and could have, you know, been, I'm sure he was tired. I mean, if he can be. And he could have just kind of ridden it out a little last few. He knocks him out because he went for it. He never stopped going for it. Knocks out Joseph Parker in the 11th round. So super impressive. There's my Joe Joyce little intro for you. And now I'm going to tell you, this goddamn fight is so important in ways I didn't think because of the performance from Joe Joyce. And because he has always looked this way of a force of nature, definitely got a chin, he definitely cracks, all this. But the lack of boxing ability there, man, you really just would think that he wasn't long for this world with like a Joseph Parker or a Chisora or those kind of step-ups. You know, he beat Daniel Dubois, but that kind of, you know, got him out of there a little bit earlier, I believe it was. And you know, also, he looked a little even touch better here. He was just walking, lumbering, sauntering along across the ring and winging shots in that Daniel Dubois fight. This was better performance where he was winning rounds and the work rate was up, and this was against better competition. This was his toughest test to date. He is 15-0. He is all fucking knockout in there. He is a force to be reckoned with. And I gotta tell you guys, the way that this guy not only has a real good chin on him, and I just don't know what kind of shots get this guy out of there, but also I think that he could beat. It's not that he definitely would, but I really think that he could, like, not just beat, but knock out late in the fight, like this one, in AJ, you know? Even, like, yeah, and Anthony Joshua. I think he beats Chisora. I think he could get outboxed for a bit and still definitely be in it to win against the Dillian White. All of these guys, man, Hellenius, all these guys, he doesn't beat Tyson Fury for sure. And he's so big and cracks so hard. I don't know about with an Usyk, but Usyk's so goddamn good. I mean, I have to lean Usyk in there. But those are the only two guys. I'm going to tell you guys that. You know what fight I want to see? Joe Joyce versus Deontay Wilder. Set that bitch up, boxing. Because here's the thing. If you guys are going to do... If we're not going to get, you know, Fury should fight Usyk. It should be Usyk Fury. We know that. But maybe that won't happen. Now they talk about Fury AJ after AJ's coming off 2 losses. Wilder's just coming back, and those are after 2 losses in a row as well. We should do Wilder AJ maybe, right? But they're not going to do that for sure, right? Right now, at least I don't know why. But that was something everybody said, that makes just the most sense. And it does, but It's boxing, so they're not going to do that. If we're not going to do that, and if also Fury isn't going to fight Alexander Usyk, right, to unify, we need to get... Who's Deontay Wilder fighting? So then it's not those two top guys. It's not AJ. I want to see Wilder versus Joe Joyce. I think that the stylistic matchup of two guys who have never had much boxing ability as far as, technique goes, and pumping the jab out there and being defensive and things like that. If we the matchup there is kind of equal, I mean, I would have even edged Wilder, if you could believe it or not, in like a, not such a loose thing, but out of the two to say out of, technique and boxing ability. But now Joe Joyce showed a little bit difference of a wrinkle in this fight of just winning rounds and not getting it, and incorporating little differences like the dipping your head and stuff with your shots while you're throwing. I mean, that is equaled out to me. And then you got, who is going to stop Joe Joyce? I didn't have that guy in my... I had him as an honorable mention. I didn't do this, but 3 weeks ago I made a top 10 heavyweight list, and I might have had Joyce as an 11, or, lowest 12, but I had him as an honorable mention. I put it to mention his name after listing a top 10 that he was not in. And now he's immediately in it to me. And I don't care what you say. I really was so impressed by this fucking guy. I don't see how somebody's just going to stop him. You'd have to be a Fury or a Usyk to slickly outbox him, to be so much greater of a level. Because we just saw him fuck up Joseph Parker, who can box a bit, and who's a big heavyweight, a natural heavyweight, and who can hit hard himself, and who hit this fucking guy hard multiple times. Like I said, hitting him while he's throwing, which is the worst time when it's unexpected. It just never mattered, man. So who's going to put his lights out? Who would be able to do that in the whole hip? Maybe Deontay Wilder, right? But also, Deontay Wilder, notorious for losing rounds and then looking for that good one. Always searching, and maybe he'll get a round or two in there, but that's never the game plan almost for him, right? Look, it's just to get you out of there. Joe Joyce is he just has a chin of steel. How? I don't understand, fucking had to hit him twice because he had a chin on him. I mean, really, this guy is a fucking unrelenting force of nature, and I could see, okay, if anyone can put him out, it would be Deontay Wilder. If anyone can put him out, that would be who it would be. It would be Wilder's punch, right? And then, but also, on the flip side of that, Wilder with the losing rounds, Joe Joyce is a non-stop, relentless force with throwing so many punches every goddamn round, and he never stops, and he never takes a back step. And when you don't take back steps, as we saw play out in the... Everybody was scared of Wilder, but the whole thing that played out that we learned here is, Tyson Fury's great, but a lot of what it was as simple as always put him on the back foot, because he can't really box like good that much anyway, and then on his back foot he's almost useless a little, Wilder. So that's what Joe Joyce would do. I think that's a match made in heaven that could a little bit go either way. Could see either guy winning that fight, and I love the idea of it. And not only that, like I said, Joe Joyce for me jumped right into my fucking top 10. I mean, I haven't officially done the list as to who do I move, a Dillian White or this guy or that guy. He's up there though. I want to say I might plop him somewhere around in 7, not in 10 and stuff with this win. Very, very, very impressive. And until next time, loyal fight fans, I hope you enjoyed that we did this little recap for you. And as I said before, keep an eye out for that new Unknown to Casuals. I think you're going to like this one. We have so many lined up that it literally just won't run out. For boxers, going on today to a slew of never-ending old school fighters to eventually get into. This one's a little special that I really kind of worked on, and we're going to fit this one in coming up this week. I hope you enjoy your week at work. Aren't Mondays just the greatest day of the week?